Simon with, you know what, it is not working. There's no way that that is working. Hold on 1 second here. Maybe it is and I just don't see it, but I won't. Give me 2 seconds to see if I can get this camera fixed. Let me see. Okay, says the camera's on. I have no idea if the camera's on. We will work from there. So, hi everyone. My name is Simon. I am with toughtrader.com, and I want to talk about journaling today. I usually just cover price action, but the goal behind this, is primarily for the room members, but anyone who's watching. How do I use a journal to improve my daily performance day over day? And so, in the spectrum of day trading, day trading is the hardest level to both get consistency, manage risk, and make money. The failure rate is pretty high, anything from 75 to 95%. I don't think it's 95% failure rate. I think it's probably closer to 75% failure rate, and then probably the top 5% make all the money, if that, and everyone else struggles. So in between there, you've got to figure out where your edge lies, right? How to improve prices, and how to listen to the market and not listen to what your own personal feelings are about the market or the political environment, or anything else that might be affecting your view. What you want to do is get as close to, I recognize the pattern, and I hold on 1 second. Everything's fine. How do I recognize the pattern? How do I approach the day when I walk in? How am I going to learn from what I did or my decision-making process through the course of the day? And how can I improve from tomorrow? I lean a lot on what I learned from Dr. Steenbarger, Dr. Jeff Baldridge, who's my trading coach, and other coaches that I've used in the past. And the journal has been my most effective tool from the time where I was always a good trader. However, mixed in with the good trading was a lot of bad trading and a lot of big drawdowns, right? And over trading, allowing emotions to get out of control. What else I do? And then an overconfidence in my ability to lose money, and then being very, very confident that I could simply make it back up. FOMO at one time, or just simply be, or the other end of the scale where I was just overwhelmed by the range and I couldn't adjust my trading process to the range that was being offered. So what I plan to do today is 3 steps. I want to talk about how I approach the market in the morning, right? What I'm taking away during the day, how I'm staying focused on what my process is and not allowing small step backs to throw me, how I'm reviewing at the end of the day, and then my bigger kind of overall thought process in the evening as I'm looking at my journal and how I use it when I start trading poorly to get back on track. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to use today, I'm just going to journal today's trading, which was mixed for me. And I'm going to show you how I went through both prepared pre-market, what I did once we started trading, and go from there. So before we start the whole thing, I have to throw this up real quick. That is not what I wanted to throw up, and obviously I need to change the I'll just go ahead and change the password on that. There we go. And where is my favorite disclaimer? Here we go. I will find it really quick. Wow, everything's just popping up here that I don't want to pop up. Desktop. And yes, I'm telling you right now, this is not a fast-moving, exciting webinar. This is quite purposely how to use your journal and how to make money. And like everything that's actually pretty important in the market, the nitty-gritty isn't always that exciting, right? So number one, past performance is not indicative of future results. This is for educational purposes only. Please don't follow me blindly. I do lose money from time to time. I do draw down occasionally. I work really hard to control that. But take what you like from me, leave the rest, whether you consider me a great trader or a complete idiot. Doesn't matter to me one way or the other, because basically at the end of the day, it's me against me and my decision-making ability and how much money I can take out of the market. My goal here as a trading coach and as a mentor in the room is to help my guys improve and get better day by day. And I think the journal is one of the most important tools to do that. So trading derivatives has substantial risk. and you can lose your backside if you don't know what you're doing. Please, please, please manage your risk. Okay, so to start with, really quickly, when I come into the day and I start the day off, the first question I ask is, did I sleep well? I have 3 girls, 2 of which are young twins. I got to make sure that I'm sharp before I start trading. I have come in so tired that I could not trade. It's rare as they're getting older, but it's happened, right? Next, are there any personal problems that are getting in the way? This is a checklist. I just go straight down the checklist in the morning. Any personal problems that I need to address before the market opens, right? That could stand in the way of me performing well. I don't know. So everyone has, let's talk about that for a second. Everyone has personal problems, right? Doesn't matter whether you're rich, poor, or in between, right? You're not trying to get rid of your personal problems before you come into work. You're just saying, this is bothering me, this is bothering me. Per example, with my lovely wife, let's say I had a disagreement with her the night before. I'm going to write down, had a disagreement with my wife, not a severe fight. She was probably right, I'm probably wrong. That's how it usually works anyways. And it's important for me not to, if I'm angry or get any feelings regarding that, using the market to make myself feel better about who I am, or try to make my ego feel better about what I'm doing or how I'm doing it. Okay, so that is the first step in the process. Number 2, in the morning, I want to review my goals. First thing I'm asking is, what did I do well the prior day, and what did I do really poorly the prior day? So let's use today as an example, right? So what I did poorly today that I would like to improve, this is what I would do tomorrow morning. So I'm going to write in the journal, but today, let me pull up my other screen. Screen right here. There we go. Okay. I'm going to write that if I pull over my other tool set, here we go, was that in the morning, despite recognizing that we've been trending up all day long, this is my ES chart right here, right? This is where yesterday in the evening I had plotted out, let's see if we can get this all in one chart. Okay, I had plotted out this location here. I'll draw a big square on it. I wanted to be long there, right? That was a key location. I didn't get long, right? And additionally, I goofed the short right here. I had the short and I got stopped out by a tick, right? I goofed the short right here, which I had a nice 2-point trade. I ended up getting stopped. It was only for 2 points or 2.25. It wasn't terrible, but the fact was what was sitting here at this 26.42. So I'm going to write this down. I had to choose between using my normal 2-point stop or adjusting this for a 2.5. If I adjusted this to a 2.5 or 2.75 point stop right here, to adjust for yesterday's value area low, which I'm going to cover that purple right there. And I didn't adjust for it when I took the short. I took the short in the right location based on how I follow my process. I took the short in the right location, but I got stopped. I immediately, when I saw that it just simply whipped into prior day's value area high and rejected, right? I saw that I wanted to short again, and normally I would have, except for 2 things. So I'm writing this down in my journal, shorthand, and then I write it out at the end of the day, longhand, right? So what I would write in the journal there is that I had the right location based on my formula, which is I was backside test of the biggest delta of the day, which goes into my algo, which I'm not going to go into in this webinar, right? I had the right location, I had the right entry. I didn't make the adjustment for what was a likely test of a backside test of a key location, and that was my mistake. So I would write that down. That's what I did poorly today, right? That was the first thing that I did poorly, and I took the stop. Not re-entering the trade was fine. So I'm writing down each of these. If you'll notice what I'm trying to do here when I'm going through this journaling process is I'm writing down what's frustrating me, and then I'm going back in and saying, well, how could I resolve it, right? So I just write it in shorthand, but what my note was in shorthand was this morning, which was right here. What my note was I feel stupid, got stopped right at prior day's value area low. That's a key location on a gap down for an initial rejection on the backside test. Plus, it was the biggest delta. Poor management on the stop, and then tonight. So now I've got what I did poorly in that one area. That's step one, right? What was my thought process? My thought process was to stay on process, which I did, right? But then I got inflexible. I didn't want to adjust the stop. So here I'm going to show you what happened. If I come over here and I come back over here, this will look confusing on this. Okay, right about here. So what I was trying to short specifically, without explaining all this, was the backside test of this bar. Value area low was sitting right at 28, I think 62 and a quarter, which was one tick behind here. And I simply didn't put the stop in the right place. So there's three things that I want to do when that occurs. Okay, so first of all, you feel dumb, right? So, or you feel mad or whatever it is you feel about it, right? Secondly, the voice inside my head said take the short, right? But that would break my trading rules, particularly on the first trade of the day, right? The last thing you want to do is take a stop, reload, take another stop back to back, right? Even if it's only a 2-point stop, you don't want to start stacking up stops quickly. It's not the point. The point is you have the high odds location to begin with and you manage it correctly. So what I want to write is how could have I done that better? Well, the obvious answer is I could have cut trade size and put a bigger stop to adjust for the value area high that was right behind it. Choice number two is I did nothing wrong. That's my normal stop on that setup. And if it just happened to break this time, my second choice could be there's no need to break for my normal process. That was a stop, shoulder shrug, right? And go, and then I had to make it, because see, each step in the consistency process, I'm going to take a step back. Each little time you try to make a perfect little change for each little trade that might have stopped you this time. The question is, does your process have a stop that'll let you survive the majority of your trades? Does it keep you in a way that doesn't make you schizophrenic, meaning you're jumping from one rule to another rule and changing it consistently? And number three, was the adjustment I wanted to make enough that the adjustment called for me either not taking the trade or cutting trade size, increasing the stop, and having survived? Normally, the way I conclude after thinking about something like this and going through my notes and processing my feelings about it is that normally that stop works. Okay, and I'm going to give you an example of that. I would take a picture of that and how that failed, and then I would come over here. Our next short target for the day was right up here. I saw the arrow drawn on it, right? And I did make an adjustment. I didn't take the short, but this is my next short target, right? I left for lunch at this time. But when we were in the room, I said, hey, if you're going to try for this short, you may want to take it 2 ticks in front of the bar in this particular case, because there's probably not enough energy the first time back to get up there if you really want the short, right? I didn't want it. I wanted to go to lunch. But that is an adjustment that's acceptable and already in my rules. But the stop would have remained the same. If I shorted here, the stop still would have been 2 ticks behind this bar, right? And I'm going to give you a perfect example of that. When it did come back over here at about 1 o'clock my time, and what I'm talking about is right over here. We pushed in. I'm going to scoot that over. See how we pushed in, and it didn't go. I think it went 1 tick behind here. So it stopped 2 ticks behind, kept you in the trade, and then it rolled over beautifully, right? You would have entered it at approximately 28.6650, assuming that trading the short sides are right with you. And it would have ended up having 2 points of risk, and it gave you a potential from 66 all the way back down to 61, let's call it. 5 points of range. You had a 2-to-1 RR. Okay, so why is that important? Because I want to ask how often and how much I want to start increasing my stops. And then the other part is there was no need for me to take the trade 2 times over here. There was no need in the morning for me to take the trade 2 times in this location. Why? Because the stop is designed to let me take my next high odds setup, and particularly when you have a small account, it's really important. What you don't want to do is get stuff that will trigger you into tilt. So you want to make a decision, right? So a lot of this is dependent on how big an account you're trading, and I'm trading one small account and one pretty good size account, right? So the whole point of this is that you have feelings and emotions that are going to, unless you're ice cold, which I've met some guys, but you're going to have some feelings and emotions. They're going to contradict or counter what your trade plan is, and they're going to cause you to want to break the rules. What you need to learn, you don't have to be Mr. Perfect or Mrs. Perfect. all you've got to do in that journaling process is write down what your emotions are on that stop at the time, what the solution would have been to stay in that trade or avoid as large a loss or small a loss as you took, right? And whether that was a correct decision. And then whether you want to come back and make a actual adjustment to your process so that you can capture that losing trade the next time, right? So for me, when I look at this, what would conclude almost immediately. Number one, the 2 to 2.5 point stop works for me almost every time against that setup, right? Number two thing that I would have, number two thing I would have said in that particular situation, I would have concluded I had the right stop. It stopped me out. It didn't ruin my day, and I still had a good opportunity later in the day to either take another short or even later in the afternoon. We got a good long setup later on, and all the stops that I put in there and the sizing were appropriate and in accordance with my trading rules and my risk parameters. So after I've gone through this whole mix of my own personal feelings, what I know is when I come in tomorrow, what I don't want to do is all of a sudden start trading with 4 point stops so I can avoid the little being ticked out for my tight stop. I know that setup works the majority of the time. So I'm going to conclude that on that trade, it was unfortunate that I got stopped. I had the right idea. Next time, if you are trading that setup near a key number like value area high, value area low, and that value area high is within 1 or 2 ticks, or that value area low is within 1 or 2 ticks, and it's likely to get checked up upon, right? Either reduce size and adjust the entry, or choice number two, pass on the trade if you don't like the location. Those are your two choices, but don't dramatically increase your stop. Or the last piece is you could have simply gone, if I account for, and this is acceptable, but I'm going to give you the catch 22 to it. I'm going to adjust my entry to keep my stop normal, but if I miss the trade, that's okay because I can't afford to take the stop or the loss, right? And that's where people get in a lot of trouble when I'm coaching people, is they don't want to make a decision on which is right. What they want to do is, if we're going to reject off when we come back over to this trade, right? When I come back in here, right? So when I come back over here and I'm looking for the short, right? What they want to do is go, well, if it's going to come back over here, I don't want to get stopped. However, if I'm going to get stopped, right? So if all I had to do was adjust my stop by 2 ticks and then I was going to get paid, well, then I want to do that. But if it's going to go ahead and stop me, then I don't want to do that trade, right? And that puts you in a losing situation. Just make sure you've decided what your stop's going to be and stick by that stop, right? And then if you're looking over, well, the other thing that your journal should do is over a series of trades and frustrations, you should kind of have a short guide on the top of your journal that goes, so you can reference it quickly. You should be able to go, okay, in these situations, this is what I've done in the past, and X has been the result. So that, and what you'll do is build a natural muscle memory in your brain from writing down your good trades and your bad trades over and over, where you'll figure out, like today, I'll go, yeah, I wanted to take the trade the second time. That's a bad decision because it could hand me 2 stops back to back, wait for the next setup. Okay, now watch what happened next. I'm literally going through my trading day. Now next, what I would have liked to have done, I did not take my trade first time into support right here for the counter rotation. But then we backside tested it, and actually I should have taken this long right here on the backside test, and where I should have taken the backside test should have been an acceptable stop against this bar right here. I'm not going to go into the details why, but that was right in my support area. And there's 2 key reasons for that. If we were going to hold, we should have held against that. We already tested VWAP, and we already closed above my biggest negative delta. And in this particular pattern, this is the biggest negative delta on a rotation down, and there was no energy. And we failed to break the last swing low from pre-market, right? There's a lot of reasons to want to get the trade here, and we got delta divergence, and even worse, then I got my momentum long. I was backside testing, in addition, my first momentum long, and then that was followed up by a second momentum long. Okay, so in that, what I want to write is, even though I was below my biggest delta of the day, right, this was still a valid backside test. It had held my support that I had posted to my members from the evening before, and what had happened on this backside test was that I'd gotten agitated from getting stopped over here. I was so busy worrying or fretting that I'd gotten stopped that it never dawned on me to stop and look at my trading going, oh, but now we're backside testing over here. There's no push to the downside. And then what I also missed, so I'm writing down small details that I missed. So I'm trying to train my brain to have more attention to it, right? So see when we came back, the first thing I'm going to notice is see when we came back through and we established that low at the bottom. See how we had that's cumulative delta at the bottom. I'm going to write, I missed the fact that we had a increase or delta divergence on the low, right? Secondly, I missed the backside test of my first delta push up. Then the next thing I'm going to write here is, and I said in the room, I said, if we close, okay, so that's the first part is I didn't take the backside test with a 2-point stop there. Why? Again, when my first trade of the day loses money, I spend too much energy is what I'm going to write down, worrying about that stop instead of going and focusing on my next most important trade. That's the next trade that's most important. And if you'll watch this process, I actually had plenty of opportunities to flip that trade profitable or flip apologize, my wife texted me. I was so obsessed with that stop that I didn't flip my brain over to going, what's the opportunity to make money on the day here? I was too worried about the stop and talking too much. What I should have done, and I already wrote this down for the day, we had delta divergence at the low. We were backside testing the biggest negative delta at the low of the day. We had a momentum long indicator that printed right after getting the delta divergence, which is normally a long signal for me anyways. I missed the backside test into a support zone, right? So I want to be cognizant of all these things tomorrow. And what was I thinking? Most of my thinking was dominated by, I don't want to have a second stop on the day, right? Okay, so now I know that whether what I say you shouldn't do that, and I tell my coaching clients, move right along to your next high odds setup. What I did instead was, instead of focusing on what my most important job was, which was finding my next trade, I was still upset about the stop that I took earlier because I felt that the market owed me a profitable trade, and I let it distract me from what the opportunity was at hand. And then the third place that I made a mistake today, right? And I still ended up having a profitable day, right? But where I made a mistake was I said to the whole room, okay, if we close above this bar specifically for lots of reasons that I'm not going to cover right now, the first bar that we close clearly above, which would have either qualified this bar or this bar, that we are probably long almost immediately, and that I should find a way to get long, and that the logical push-up was our resistance at 67, 69. I could have easily entered it either 63, 62.50 or 63, either one of those, 63 and a quarter. Any of those would have been fine with a stop right below this bar right here. So I could put my stop at 20.60.50. That's a reasonable parameter. All I had to do was adjust my trade size for the stop. And as we get every single time, once we close over our biggest negative delta of the day, delta is improving overall, and we push to the upside almost immediately. You can see it was a slow crawl up there. Here, I'll push it. Slow crawl, and we pushed right in. And I said we probably get topped out when we print the biggest delta of the day. And what was the reason for that? So now I'm going to go and show you what I did well. See when we crossed the line right here at 20K? So what do I want to improve? I should have taken the long right here. Now, the thing that I did well, going back to my journal and what I want to repeat tomorrow, is I said, hey, we crossed 20K on the cumulative delta for the day, but we didn't print the biggest delta. That's a deviation from the normal pattern. Normally, as soon as we cross above and we get the biggest delta, I don't care what happens. I just take the long. And I said, I'm not going to take the long here because I want to learn what happens from this point. Well, what actually happened? We still got the same result. If I had taken this bar right here, right, with the 20K crossover, what happened was simply we didn't push as much, and it wouldn't have been a fantastic trade, but it would have been from 65 and eventually crawled its way to 67 and 68. It still would have been a profitable trade. That's good to note. But without the biggest delta printing on that cross, we didn't get the 10 to 20 point extension. And it's the second day, I'm going to note, second day where we've got to cross over 20K and we didn't get a significant extension, but it was still profitable. So now for tomorrow, what I'll probably do on that is, or the next time I see that, I'll take that trade again on half size to the long side, right? And so now I've learned from the process. I went on pause. And what I also didn't do is I didn't get mad that I missed the longs from below and turn around and short it. What did I say? And the next thing that I did well today, because I want to carry it over to tomorrow, I'm literally listing this out in my journal as I'm going along. The next thing I said was, if we get below this bar right here, and we called it out in the room, we pointed it out for everyone to see it, right? I said if we close below, which we did right here, this is when I was about to walk out. I said the backside test of this bar is now a valid short. Your stop has to be 2 ticks behind the high of that bar, right? And then your target is where? Back to VWAP or somewhere in that proximity. And then Ralph, who's in the room, had the 60-62 target, right? Okay, so this is really important, this part of the deal. What I said was the market was moving too slow. I felt the bears had lost the upper hand already, and I didn't see any counter rotations to that point, and I was hungry. I wasn't going to take the trade. So I want to point this out. Randy said that what he needed, who's in the room, Randy's a good trader, right? And he said he actually had his limit at 66.50, and he got a little annoyed, right? Because it came to 66 and a quarter by 66.50 on the ask, and it never traded the 50. He never got a chance to get filled, and he felt like he missed his rollover. So Randy, if that were in my situation, what I would have written, and I didn't get back here in time to take this, but what I would have written in my journal, and what I did write was the first true backside test of that bar, right, filled, a stop 2 ticks above, so you would have had 2.5 points roughly worth of risk, gave you the roll to the downside, all the way down to VWAP of 5 to 6 points to the downside. And that was actually on the first true backside test. And I would have also noted if I waited for some negative space to get built in there. Why is that all important? So go through that, right? I'm going through all this technical stuff. Well, what I wrote on the top was, I'm just scared to short at the top of the market when I think the bears have gotten sold out. And the answer was I was wrong. So now I got to consider, do I want to take that trade? So what I essentially did was I had a potential 5-point trade that I refused to take, either because I wasn't here, but even if I'd been here, I doubt that I would have taken it. Because what I said all day was when I get the first close above that bar, I want to be long because I think they'll push, right? So what's the problem with that trade for me? What do I want to improve? I have a thing in my head that says when delta's above 20K to be very, very careful with the shorts. And it looks like it's wrong some of the time at least, right? That if I get behind that biggest delta, so now I've got to ask myself, it's okay not to short. As I've said many times, the longs simply work better than the shorts. But I've got to ask, but what it's not okay is to go, oh, I didn't short it because I was scared that the market was going to run up, right? But then it's not okay to flip around and go, well, I should have, right, done this and be mad at myself, which I wasn't, right? What I said was I need to reconsider whether I want to short that trade or not. And all I wrote is I have not come to a conclusion. Go back and make notes and go back and look at prior examples and decide whether you want to take that trade or not. That's a really big delta. And usually in all but the strongest of trend up days, especially once you've gotten an extension down, that second test back is usually worth at least 2 points. Okay, so I may need to reconsider it. Okay, going to my last trade of the day, what I did really well. I had highlighted in the room when we were up here, and again, if you look in our on our Slack channel, Ralph had pointed out, and I agreed with him, 62 to 60 was a good area to look for the backside test for a long. It would have been the first test since Europe last night of VWAP. Usually when you've gone so long against VWAP, you have people just biting at the bit to get long at that location. Okay. Number two, again, just as we had in the morning, we got the biggest negative. So I entered on half size and I kind of fumbled it. Actually ended up entering at 61 or 60.75 and 61 and a quarter or somewhere in that area right here. That was good. But I entered on half size. Why? Because I was afraid they were going to dip it below. No problem. I thought I was going to be able to get some at 60. I had a limit sitting at 60. It just didn't fill. I'm cool with all of that, right? Where I made the mistake is when we rotated up the first time into 63, I scaled out for 2 points, half the trade, and I did all right. I reloaded when we came back to 62 on that trade. There's nothing wrong with that. Here's where I made the mistake and where I'd like to improve. I know that this was the biggest delta from this rotation down. We held VWAP, and again, when we tested back, delta had been improving on that backside test. And I had the opportunity. All I had to do was tag up at 62, 62 and a quarter. And instead of what I did was I reloaded again, but I should have loaded up to full size because I didn't get full size the first time in, and I would have had a nice ride to 66. That's what I'd like to improve for tomorrow. So what I did well today, is I didn't overtrade the same location. What I did poorly today is I did not take my longs on the biggest delta of a rotation down after I got a clear signal that I should be pounding the backside of those for long trades when the market was already showing me that it is long, right? And then the last piece was I did not scale enough when we pushed into the 66. I did take some scale at 65.50, but I let my trailer, the most of that trailer that I reloaded down here, I took a scale, I think at 63 or 63.50, took a little scale at 65.50, but I did not unload all of it because I still had a fantasy of us pushing up and out to a new high, and there probably just wasn't enough energy this afternoon. That's the only thing I wanted to improve. So now I have a really clear picture. So going back in my journal, right, I've gone through my feelings for the day, how I felt, what I did well, and what I did poorly, right? Areas I want to carry through tomorrow to get better. So what did I do well? I did not get bearish on the gap down, and I stayed flexible on the short side of the trade. I didn't get overly upset when I got stopped, but I let it interfere with my ability to take it what should have been considered an otherwise a very good long, right? So I want to improve that tomorrow. When I had the biggest delta of a rotation down, we make an impulse move up. I want to make sure that I'm taking the risk on the backside because that gets rewarded. I want to improve when we get that first close above. So I'm uncomfortable with that trade. I know that from my notes. Otherwise, I would have taken that long right out of the gate. When I close above my biggest delta of the day after we've rolled down from it and they've used it as resistance, I at least want to take half size as soon as that bar closes so I can take that ride to the upside, right? And then lastly, I get to, although I haven't made a decision on it yet, I need to review once again because I didn't do it yesterday on the 5,000 delta and I didn't do it today on the 4,000 delta. I need to review my hesitation of being willing to short after a rotation up and printing the biggest delta of the day and making a push underneath. I need to review for improvement whether I want to go ahead and take that short or not. My conclusion is that I probably will on reduced size is what I'll conclude on that, right? Because the trades are working consistently in this particular environment. But when I look at the day as a whole, I didn't do such a poor job, right? I didn't let my poor decision making, my unlucky stop, let's call it that way, because it was my normal stop that I used. I didn't let my unlucky stop throw me into tilt trading. Very good. I did prevent it from me from taking two good longs. Thumbs down there, but can be improved, right? Lastly, I kept focused on my target, 67, 69. And what did I say I wanted there? The biggest delta of the day. Since we didn't get it on the 20K breakout, probably marks a high instead of a breakout point, right? I did that well. Next, the close underneath, I pointed out that's probably a valid short, but I didn't take it. I can improve in that area, but I know my read was good. And then I said, lastly, if we closed above that, and I know I would have done this, I would have taken the long above that 42.19 because I probably had 2 to 5 points in there if we could have squeezed above from all the shorts. And then I did a great job taking my long on the first backside test of VWAP and on the backside test of the biggest delta in that rotation down. I simply should have gone full size that first time, and I was a little hesitant. Part of that hesitancy when I was writing my notes was that I already had chunked away because I remember till this point, I was down in my larger account on the day until this point, and I had already edged some back. And if I could have gotten this push on the remaining side back to the high, I would have gone positive. As it was when I reloaded here, this push up here was enough in the large account to get me positive. And I'm flat on the day with the trailer that remained when we rolled over at the end of the day because I was hoping for a push up. Okay, net, I don't have a lot to correct. See, I can look at, now I can summarize that when I'm done, right? I know what I did poorly and what I want to improve for the next day. And I know what I did well. And per Dr. Steenbarger, which if you don't know his work, just look him up. You can look at his blog, Trader Feed. Fantastic. I think it's traderfeed.net, but fantastic blog, tons of stuff to learn from it. And all his books, I highly recommend them, right? What I can see from all of that is, notice what I'm not doing is going, I have to learn a new methodology of charting. I'm not going, I have to change my trading style. What I'm doing is pinpointing areas where I'm underperforming in really nuanced ways right? To go, these are places I can get better as I move forward, right? And this is what I push when I'm coaching one-on-one or I'm in the room. This is what I'm pushing y'all to do. I said yesterday when I came in, and yesterday wasn't a phenomenal day for me either, right? But I was pushing myself. Look for those biggest deltas, look for the key support resistance areas, and listen to what the market's saying and forget what your own opinion is about the market. Listen to the market. I did a good job listening to it. I didn't do a great job executing it. And then the last piece that I want people to remember was about the short today. Why I chose to short, we were down on the day, and I was looking to see if we could continuation lower. Okay, so we were below value area low. That was okay, but realistically, if I'm willing to short below value area low on an extension up after we get the biggest delta and we backside test it, I should be willing to do two things here. If I'm going to short this, so my concern is we close above and then we go. So there's an easy fix for that as I think it through, and this is what this helps you do, is that I could have put a short on here at half size and then a full size long above if it closed above. In other words, let's say I shorted here and it stopped me for my 2.5 points and then closed above. As soon as it closed above, I could have just simply put my full size trade on, stop underneath, and we've all seen multiple times how that ends up being a 5 to 10 point extension higher. And that's the solution to that problem, right? Also, if you have a hard time, what happened to me this morning on the short side, which is why I try to get my one-on-one coaching clients to, at least initially, focus on the long side. When you get stopped on a short, a lot of times it's so frustrating that you tend to lose track of your next 2 or 3 trades or high odds trades, versus my clients who only focus on the longs were like, I'm looking for the backside test of that delta for a long time. And so I was busy trying to capture a quick 2 or 3 point trade, and I left a 10-point trade on the table by not focusing on the long side of the trade. It's easy to talk about flipping and being on both sides of the trade. It's still very, very difficult for most people, I find, for them to go, I'm short, I'm flipping long, and do it with conviction. So something to keep in mind. At any rate, that's the end of the webinar. That's how I would have done my notes. I thought I did a pretty good job net today. It wasn't a bang up day, but overall it was pretty good. If you'd like to join us in the room for a 5-day trial, send me an email at tradertough@gmail.com. Be happy to extend you a 5-day pass. I think the charge for the room is $200 a month. I think it's a fantastic value. If you don't, one of two things are going on. Either you don't make more than $200 in a trading day, and you don't lose more than $200 in a trading day, because otherwise stuff like this is phenomenal and you need mentoring. I have my own mentor. I strongly suggest finding a mentor, someone who trades in your similar style, right? Has no interest in your success, in anything other than your success, right? And can push you in the direction you need to be pushed, so you're not over trading and you're not going through a boom bust cycle. I use Trading Coach myself. It makes a dramatic difference in my trading outcome, and it's totally worth the investment. I get many times over out of it than what I put into it. And it doesn't have to be me. The personalities have to match, but there's a lot of good mentors out there. And make sure whoever you're talking to actually trades in the style that you trade, right? If you're trading penny stocks, find a good mentor in penny stocks, right? If you're trading big cap, find a big cap trader. If you're a swing trader, don't come to a day trader and ask him to coach you. Go find a successful swing trader and ask him to coach you up on how that works, right? And where the pitfalls are and how he manages himself. Anyways, that's my 2 cents, guys. Use a trading journal. It takes a lot of the work out of improving, because it becomes obvious really quickly where your own personal holes are and what you need to improve. Does anyone in the room have any questions? I'm going to open it up. Okay, if you have any questions for me, send me an email. Again, tradertough@gmail.com. Trade smart, protect your capital, right? Don't worry about what the size of your account is. Worry about the accuracy of your trade entries and learning how to read the charts, both short-term, intraday, and learning where the likely up and down targets are, or find someone who's good at posting charts so that you can have reasonable targets up and down and know where the strong support and resistance areas are. Other than that, I don't have anything else, guys. I'm going to get my charting done for the night. Not trading Asia this evening. I will post the levels. I'll open up the room, but I am taking the evening off to spend with my daughters. So I will talk to everyone later. Have a great night.